Welcome back to my channel, guys. I guess this is going to be a coffee chat, which doesn't happen very often on here. I'm at a work conference currently, hence the hotel room backdrop. Apologies for the white noise in the background, by the way. It's the fridge, which I tried to unplug, but it's tethered to this huge desk structure that lines literally the entire hotel room. So I'm traveling for work, and I had some time between like events for this conference. And I wanted to quickly talk about the video I put out last week because it got a lot of traction and the response has frankly been overwhelming. It hit 10K views within a week, which never happens with my channel. A lot of comments, over 200 comments. As a result, my channel has had a bit of a spike in terms of revenue, in terms of viewership, new subscribers joining. All of that is wonderful, right? But I wasn't at all prepared for the negative feedback from sharing a super vulnerable story that clearly jolted me, and that by the way is very embarrassing to share. Like, I felt ashamed that I experienced this. I mentioned that in the video that I went through this, and I was shocked by how many people who, instead of just not commenting, like, it's one thing to just, for whatever reason, not care or not have compassion for somebody sharing a vulnerable story like that. You're not required to feel anything. But I was shocked by how many people felt a need to comment in a way that felt, frankly, unproductive and kind of destructive versus constructive. Any constructive feedback on my channel I welcome. And sometimes you guys keep me in check and you give me another perspective and I'm like, you know what, damn, like they have a point there. Particularly as it relates to like a dating story or hookup story. But I would say like half the comments on that video felt to me like they were trying to reinforce the shame I was already feeling by saying, well, what did you expect meeting a guy from an app? Why would you use grindr of all things? What you should have done is XYZ. And I was stunned that in a story that I'm sharing where I felt unsafe with somebody, and I know I put myself in that situation, obviously, but I was stunned that so many people's immediate reaction would be, well, you should have done XYZ, you should have been more assertive, you should have... Obviously, in hindsight, I'm like, why didn't I do this? Why was my instinct to do that? But I was disappointed by that kind of commentary because it doesn't actually teach anybody anything new. It's certainly not helpful to me. If anything, it just made me feel worse. And I wonder how many people have been through something similar or will go through something similar, and they know that that kind of like shame culture will await them if they share their story with anybody. So I was pretty disappointed by that, but worse than that was the comments that were like seemingly defending the guy I described in this video, who I have no doubt, at best, this guy has a hard time reading other people's like cues or emotions or relating to other people emotionally. At best, no matter what, through the conversation I had with this guy, I know that he was not that concerned for my feeling of safety. It's alarming how many people in the comments had the immediate response of denying the credibility of what I'm sharing and assuming that that guy must just have a hard time communicating or must just have a hard time expressing himself. I can't imagine having sex with somebody and not giving a shit about what the other person feels. If you have kinks or fetishes around power dynamics, like BDSM type stuff, like the 50 Shades of Grey type of stuff, no judgment, but I feel like that needs to be clearly communicated and transparent, and you both need to be on the same page. Because if you don't, that's called rape. That's called assault. I'm laughing out of I like can't wrap my head around some of the comments that I've been reading the last few days, and it's really alarming to me that this many people could be riding that train. And it made me realize, oh, for these people to feel so strongly about this, these guys must be that guy. They must be the guy who's been kicked out, who's been rejected in a very visceral way, in the way that a lot of people in the comments told me I should have responded. These must be the same kind of guys who have a lack of awareness of the energy they carry when they interact with people, specifically in a sexual or romantic context. And so the last few days I've just been like kind of grossed out that this is the world that we live in, and I'm finally getting like, oh, this is what women talk about all the time. This is what women talk about in regards to not being believed or feeling that they have to prove the validity of a situation where they felt unsafe. And this is why so often people don't report abuse, assault, and so on, because they have the instinct, I guess, the awareness that then they're going to have to go through a whole other battle of having to explain themselves, prove themselves to people who might not come from the perspective of believing them from the start. So although I guess it's good that I'm suddenly now understanding what a lot of women go through, and let me just clarify, I am completely safe. The situation ended up being fine, right? The guy left. As far as I know, he's not stalking my apartment while I'm here in the Pacific Northwest for this work conference. I went to bed just fine that night. I was not robbed. I was not physically harmed. So I don't mean to compare myself to this context that I'm sharing of women who have gone through assault and so on. But I'm realizing now that there's a parallel of, oh, this is that exhausting process I'm realizing of people nitpicking details to try to discredit a really vulnerable thing that you shared, instead of just believing that somebody is telling a story because they have no reason to lie. And this reminds me of that quote from Rose McGowan, the actress who was one of the women who came forward with all the Harvey Weinstein stuff. I remember an interview where she said something like, the perfect victim is already dead, and that's a fact. And she said it so emphatically and in such an intense manner that it kind of went over my head, because unfortunately when somebody's delivery is really dramatic, you don't always pay attention to the actual message. And now that I've had this experience of telling this story and seeing the comments I got, I now get it, what that quote meant, which is that some people will only sympathize with you, if they even sympathize with you. Some people will only believe you once they see it with their own eyes, kind of like the Diddy video. If you guys know what I'm talking about. Diddy, the famed hip-hop mogul, we can say, billionaire, he's going through it now at the time of this video. All of these women are coming forward, all of these crazy assault charges from all kinds of people, all ages, men, women, and this is ranging like decades. It's not just like the past month or the past few years. He's been doing this for over 20 years. And it took a video of him beating Cassie, his partner at the time, on camera, that had to be filmed, that had to be caught on camera for some people to finally be like, oh, okay, yeah, he did it. So now I understand that Rose McGowan quote of the perfect victim is dead. So these guys leaving comments like this on my video are the kinds who are only going to finally get it if they see somebody dead. This is one video. In a month, I'm sure I'll be like, whatever. But this past week, you guys, mentally, I have not been in a good place, because every day I'm getting new messages and I get notified every time. Now, I'm sure some of you are going to be like, well, why do you read the comments? I have to read the comments. To have a successful YouTube channel, to make ad revenue on this channel, I have to engage with the comments. But I will say I'm probably a little bit too connected, too aware. I've noticed that sometimes YouTube will not notify me, but if I refresh the video, the comments show up, which I think means that these are people who have been reported by other users. So YouTube's like, we'll leave the comments, but we're not gonna like tell you there's new comments because some of these might be shady characters. I know we don't live in a perfect world. I know that we're all capable of shitty things and we all fuck up. Perhaps I could have handled that situation differently with the guy last week. Perhaps I was over dramatic. Perhaps my instincts were off. All of these things are totally possible, but I just find it stunning that so much of the attention in the comments was focused on my behavior and my response versus challenging somebody else who seemed to lack empathy. Why is people's lack of empathy, lack of belief in someone sharing a story, why is that not something that we want to focus on? So going back to women, you know, that typical example of like, well, why were you wearing that dress? I've always thought that was a stupid reference, like a stupid example, but now I'm like, oh, even if that's not the exact question, it's that kind of line of thinking of why were you out at 3 a.m.? Why were you walking home by yourself? Why do we come from that place? Is that human nature that we want to make sure we know all the details of something? We want to make sure that if something's the worst case scenario, that we have proof of it being the worst case scenario. Obviously, I understand that in the justice system, you need proof. When you have serious accusations, you need to really assess what's happening. I get that. But this story that I told, I didn't report the guy to the police. I didn't put his face in the video or his name. I don't even know anything beyond his first name. So for people to respond with that kind of like vitriol, one guy was like, how dare you tarnish this guy's image? I'm like, whoa, this is somebody who is that guy. This is somebody who's been probably accused of assault or rape or whatever and is unwilling to take a look at their own behavior. I guess the point of all this is I'm just disturbed. I'm just disturbed that this many people are walking around us all day and are this stuck in their mode of thinking, which is not actually conducive to interacting harmoniously with other human beings. I'll catch you guys next time. Promise the next few videos will not be this heavy.